Namaskar and welcome to Sansad Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues as well. Today we're going to talk about the significance of mother tongue. A mother tongue has a very powerful impact in the formation of an individual. A child's first comprehension of the world around him, the learning of concepts and skills and his perception of existence starts with the language that is first taught to him, that is the mother tongue. Now, when a person speaks their mother tongue, a direct connection establishes between the heart, the brain, and the tongue. Linguistic diversity is increasingly threatened as more and more languages disappear. Now, globally, around 40% of the population does not have access to an education in a language they speak or understand. The theme of this year's International Mother Language Day is focused on the use of technology for multilingual learning. According to the Language Census, India is home to approximately 19,500 languages or dialects, out of which 121 languages are spoken by 10,000 or more people in our country. In fact, the National Education Policy, which was released in 2020, has strongly advocated imparting early education in regional language or mother tongue. So today we're going to talk about the significance, the importance of mother tongue and education imparted in the mother tongue. What kind of impact does it have, and how better to go ahead and preserve our linguistic culture or languages and further prosper them? And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Professor M. Jagdish Kumar is joining us. He's the chairman of University Grants Commission. Welcome, sir, to Sansad Television. We're also joined by Mr. Sankrant Sanu, author, and Professor P.R. Dharenwar, Department of Sociology, Government College, Chandigarh, is also with us. Welcome, both of you gentlemen also. Let me begin with you, Professor Kumar, and let's start by understanding, the importance of mother tongue or mother language. Why is it very significant and important? And, the figures which I was quoting earlier, that indicate that it's not just India. If we take a look at the global scenario, mother tongue seems to be, being left behind, specifically when we're talking about the educational field.
Let me start with what Mahatma Gandhi said about mother tongue. Sometime in 1928, he said, by teaching our kids in English, we are turning them into foreigners in their own land. You can see the importance of the statement of Mahatma Gandhi. By teaching our students in a foreign language, our students get disconnected with our own culture, with our own civilization, with our own people around us. Mother tongue plays a very, very important role even in the cognitive development of the kids. There are enough research studies in cognitive science which have clearly proved that if the kids are taught in their own mother tongue, they become much more creative. And even if you look at the top 10 countries which have received the largest number of Nobel Prizes in the world, in all these 10 countries, kids study from the school to the PhD level in their own mother tongue. Let me also give you the importance of mother tongue. If we don't own our own mother tongue and nurture our own mother tongue, what will happen? If you look at the GDP ladder across the globe, the bottom 10 countries on the GDP ladder, they were ruled by colonial powers. When the colonial powers left, these countries, they adopted English rather than promoting their own local languages, their own mother tongue. Now you see how economically they are backward. So there are enough number of examples to indicate why it is important to teach our kids in mother tongue in order to make them more creative and innovative. Of course, there are many other social effects, social impacts, which are also important in terms of learning the mother tongue.
Okay. So that explains, the significance of mother tongue. Let's also hear in from, Professor Dharenwar first. Professor, from your point of view, because you've been involved with that, a very interesting aspect here. a person from southern part of the country in Chandigarh sitting there focusing on people, of that particular region needing to understand or rather learn their mother tongue?
First and foremost, I wish all of uh, language lovers the very best on this holy day of Mother Language Day, because on this day we remember our mother language. You see, sir, rightly you said, from Karnataka, all the way from Karnataka, now settled in Chandigarh, teaching in Government College Sector 46, and learning Punjabi language and promoting Punjabi language is just symbol and example of unity and integrity of our India. It symbolizes our great history, as Professor Jagdish Kumarji, UGC Chairman Sahab, has rightly said. In fact, this inspiration comes from our history, as Professor Jagdish Kumarji said, because when you learn others' language, it strengthens your intellectualism, your strength of thinking. I learned Punjabi language and translated Holy Sri Japji Sahib into Kannada language. It is a tremendous strength of knowledge which I gained. After that, you can see behind me the Punjabi language alphabets. I put on my head this board and campaign in all around Punjab and Chandigarh.
Okay.
Just to tell people that we cannot forget mother language. We should always adopt and accept it in everyday life. That is why I promote and propagate this language. It is my fortunate. It is my, in fact, fortunate work that I am carrying on, sir.
Okay, okay. Clearly, that is a very wonderful example there, somebody working out there in the interiors of Punjab, for people of Punjab to understand the significance of mother tongue. Mr. Sankrant Sanu, if you have to understand, the importance and significance, as Professor Jagdish Kumar was referring to, and Professor Dharen was also referring to. But as we progress in life, the way interaction in mother tongue becomes important for us, or it becomes an impediment, that is dependent upon a lot of factors.
Well, it depends on what how you are measuring progress. In almost any way that you measure progress, if you look at countries across the world, you will find that the countries that are most economically developed are using their mother tongue. The countries that are most culturally developed are using their mother tongue. So in almost any metric that you would use for progressing higher, you will find that only the countries that have invested in their mother tongues and are using their mother tongues at all levels of society, at all levels of education, are the ones that have actually progressed the most. Mm-hmm. And Japan is a great example. Just check how many Nobel Prize winners are in Japan just in the last 10 years. And they're doing all of their work, all of the work till the PhD level in Japanese. You look at, Japanese, my favorite film directors is this animator from Japan called Hayao Miyazaki, animation director. And he influenced a lot of Disney films, a lot of Disney, filmmakers, and he doesn't speak a word of English. Mm-hmm. This is the top filmmaker in Japan. He uses only Japanese. Right. So in all of whether it's cultural areas, whether it's technical areas, you find that the top countries of the world are using their own language, their own mother tongue, and this is how they're progressing.
Okay. Okay. Now that brings us to a very significant question, Professor Jagdish Kumar, that how to implement this love for mother tongue on the ground when we're talking about the generation after generation to learn it, to imbibe the mother tongue, and to prosper as well while learning or working in that particular language which is their mother tongue. What is it that we are doing? Where do we stand today? Because as I was referring to the national education policy, it does advocate strongly, but it doesn't make it compulsory.
You see, first of all, we need to get rid of this inferiority complex in our minds. Some people may think that if we don't speak in English, we are not considered on par with them. Just to give you an example, although my mother tongue is Telugu, and I studied until 12th standard in Telugu, on 7th February, when I joined in UGC as its chairman, I called all my officers and I said, English mana hai hamara office mein. Sabhi log aap Hindi mein hi baat karna hai. So it is very, very important that in everyday life, whichever Indian language that we know, we should use that in our everyday dealings. And then slowly, as part of the national education policy now, we are doing many, many things to promote the Indian languages. For example, one of the efforts that we are putting is to start professional degrees in our own Indian languages. Let me give you one small example. Let's say an engineer, a civil engineer who studies in Tamil Nadu, as an example, if he is working for the rest of his life in Tamil Nadu, he will be interacting with people who speak in Telugu. His customers will be in Tamil. His customers will be in Tamil. So if the student also studies engineering, civil engineering in Tamil language, the student also will feel very comfortable instead of learning in English. And he can use his Tamil language and his technical language to communicate with people who are with him, around him in that state. So it is very, very important that in future, we offer professional degrees also in Indian languages. And towards that end, we have already introduced in 10 colleges the professional degrees in the native languages of that state. And then there is also a committee which is working on translating these technical terms into Indian languages. Already there is a great deal of progress that has been done there. And the government has recently formed a high-powered committee to promote Indian languages. So, and remember, when we are talking about our Indian languages, we also need to look at the Indian knowledge systems that we have, be it architecture, be it medicine, be it agriculture, and so on. So much of this, our Indian knowledge systems, is in our Indian languages. So unless our kids study Indian languages, we will be losing our own knowledge, which has been preserved in our country for thousands of years. So promoting Indian languages has two effects. One, it will make people more creative and innovative. Research has already shown. Once people learn our own Indian languages, we feel more connected to our society, to our country, and we will start looking at the immense knowledge that is there in our Indian literature in different languages and start using that. For example, take Ayurveda. Today, even at the global level, there is a lot of interest in studying Ayurveda because it looks at the human body in an integrated way and provides very simple solutions. Suppose we don't study our own Indian languages, we will be losing the knowledge of Ayurveda also.
Indeed.
So therefore, learning Indian languages has multi-dimensional advantages, and we need to promote Indian languages in our country.
Indeed, those are great repositories of wisdom when you're referring to, those aspects of what is available there in Indian languages in various fields. Now, Professor Dharanwar, I'd like to bring you in here. And this is really important for us to understand since you work with students or teach them in their own native language, that is mother tongue. How easy or difficult it is for the students to grasp various aspects of other subjects as well in their mother tongue?
Yeah, in fact, when I was selected by UPSC, Union Public Service Commission in 2003, I started teaching in English only initially. One day I realized that all the students come from nearby state like HP, Haryana, and most of them from Punjab. I started teaching them in English. One day I realized I must start learning Punjabi language and teach them in their own language. When I did that, I tell you, record says that most of the students started getting 90 plus marks in sociology. In fact, the interest to listen lecture in Punjabi language increased. In fact, the students knowledge and students' interest increases when you teach them in their own mother language, which I have observed.
Okay.
Not only this, if you give them materials, study materials in English, they don't accept it. They don't, in fact, understand sometimes. But at the same time, when you give them study material in their own language, they take it with a high respect, and study it and understand it and get good marks.
Okay.
I tell you, some of the students developed so much interest that they started writing MA, MPhil, their PhD in their Punjabi or some other their mother languages. To say that universities and colleges develop that kind of interest. In fact, when Professor Jagdish Kumarji was Vice Chancellor in Jawaharlal University, he introduced Kannada language, and because of which the interest in local language has increased even in JNU. That thanks to Professor Jagdish Kumarji for this, for being a JNU Vice Chancellor previously.
Okay. Mr. Sankrant Sanu, from your perspective, if we have to understand this important, progression when we are looking at how to not only preserve our mother tongue, our mother languages, but also prosper in them, and that involves education aspect as well, as both Professor Jagdish Kumar and the other panelist is also pointing out. Now, from your point of view, if we have to understand, what are the challenges and the opportunities here? Because there seems to be a lot of material and a lot of stuff which is available in terms of the wisdom, repository of wisdom, but also a lot which needs to be done.
Yes, I think it's very important to understand two parts of this. One is that the biggest challenge is actually in our own minds. This is, the title of my book that I wrote on this topic is called The English Medium Myth. So we have a myth that is prevalent, especially among the elite, the chattering classes of India. There's a myth which is prevalent, which says English is the way to progress. If you have to develop the country, if you have to progress, if India has to develop, then everybody has to learn English, and this is how development will happen. So the biggest barrier right now is this attitude which is spread across society that without English, we will not be able to move forward. Once you start to, and a lot of these people say, okay, without English, how will you communicate with the world? I often tell them, the only people who say this is people who have not seen the world, because the world does not actually operate in English. This is only in our head that we think the world operates in English, because the only country we know is maybe the UK and the US, because some children are going to study in the US, we think of US, but that's not the world. Most of the countries in the world do not actually use English. They are not using English for technology. They're not using English for any of the fields of endeavor, for law, for accounting, for business. All of them are using their own languages. And they're very, very, they're developed countries. All over Europe, every country is using their own language. So that's the first part, is to get rid of this idea that English is necessary, and to realize that actually English is an impediment. And this is what Professor Panditra was also saying, that English is actually a barrier for our children to rise up. Our children are very comfortable in their language. They want to study, but as soon as the English barrier hits them, they lose interest in studies. They don't want to study more.
Okay.
I was in a village in Haryana in near Rewari, and I had taken IQ tests with me, and I had traveled across many states in northern India, Uttarakhand, Haryana, and Rajasthan, giving these IQ tests to villages, to village children, and also to urban children. And I found that, at least in my sample, the village children outscored the urban children in IQ. And there's this one village near Rewari where nearly 1/3 of the children in that village scored above 90th percentile in IQ, which is outstanding. So I asked the principal, आपके बच्चे इतने होशियार हैं, ये बड़े आगे जाते होंगे, क्या करते हैं? And the principal said, जी क्या करें, बच्चे 8वीं के बाद ड्रॉप आउट हो जाते हैं. A lot of children leave after 8th. मैंने कहा ऐसा क्यों? कह रहे जी मेरे बच्चे गणित में बड़े तेज हैं, दे आर वेरी गुड इन मैथ, लेकिन इनको अंग्रेजी नहीं समझ आती। तो आगे की सारी पढ़ाई अंग्रेजी में, अगर इंजीनियर बनना है तो अंग्रेजी में बनना है, इनका अंग्रेजी से डर लगता है।
Okay.
और इसलिए छोड़ देते हैं पढ़ाई। ये फिर कोई टैक्सी चला रहा है, कोई खेत में जा रहा है, आगे की पढ़ाई करना छोड़ देते हैं। सो व्हाट वी हैव टू रियलाइज इज, in our mind, we have to realize that English is actually the biggest barrier for our progress, and pushing English down to the primary level is not going to solve this problem. The other solution that people have advocated, and some states have even started doing, is to start pushing English down to the primary level. Now imagine, instead of English, if I said tomorrow, all your children are going to study in Chinese medium, compulsorily, from primary. Okay, there is no environment in your house for Chinese, right? Take a village, they have no environment for English. So like there is no environment for your house in Chinese, but you say, now the medium will be Chinese. You're not even saying you learn Chinese as a language. You'll say the medium will be Chinese. What will happen to the child? They'll go, they'll sit in the class, they won't understand a word.
Indeed.
This is what we are doing to the children when we are pushing English to primary medium in rural areas. So that's the first part, which is getting rid of the myth that English is the way that we're going to go forward, and to realize it's the biggest barrier that has held India back for so many years.
Okay.
Now, then the question is, what is the solution? How do we go forward? The solution is also not that difficult. First, we have to realize this principle that every child must be given the opportunity to study at the highest level in professional courses, in management courses, engineering courses, and medicine. All of these professional courses in their own language.
Okay.
So that is the first principle that we have to understand.
Okay.
Now, the second factor is that people say, okay, how will people then communicate with each other? This is also not a problem. Firstly, because actually in India, only about 4% of the people migrate outside their state. And when people migrate outside the state, like Professor Rao has done, they can pick up a language.
Yeah, different
It is not
language.
a problem. They can pick up whatever language is needed to be picked up. And finally, what countries like China or other countries have done is do a massive translation mission. You know, for the third question that we were asking, how are we going to get all this knowledge? We have traditional
something
knowledge.
Which Professor Jagdish was referring to.
Sanskrit text, and Sanskrit, I believe, should definitely be one of the compulsory languages to learn. But then we have all this modern knowledge right now, which has a lot of it has been generated in English and also in other languages, German, Japanese, other languages. So what we need is a national translation mission at a very massive scale.
Okay.
I'm glad the government has done some effort on this. But the kind of budgets we require for this, we really need to be investing.
Okay.
You know, look at this as infrastructure.
Okay.
How much are we investing in road? How much are investing in rail?
Indeed.
So we need to invest tens of thousands of crores of rupees in translation. And this is the kind of effort that China has done and is doing right now.
So equal focus has to be given there as well, Mr. Sanu. And we're running short of time in the last leg of the show. But since you mentioned the barrier, English language as a barrier out there. Now, ours is a English discussion show, Perspective, where we are talking here. But I'd like to remove this barrier in the last few minutes. And I'd request, all three of you if you could sum up in 1 minute each in your mother tongue as to what we were discussing for the past 24 minutes. That is मातृभाषा का महत्व. Professor Jagdish, आपसे शुरुआत करते हैं.
I think on this important day, let each one of us say at least one sentence in our own mother tongue.
जी बिल्कुल.
Na matrubhasha Telugu. You see, we are emotionally connected to our mother tongue, and disowning it is at our own peril. You need to look at our country's history in the coming 100 years, 200 years, 300 years. Don't have a short-term vision, long-term vision. If we completely neglect our Indian languages, what would be the future of our country?
Indeed.
If we want to strengthen our country as an organic entity, as it has existed for thousands of years earlier, we must focus on respecting and using our languages and promoting our Indian languages. There is so much of diversity and beauty in our languages. I think on this important day, let all of us make a pledge that we will not only speak in our own mother tongue, but we will also learn a couple of other Indian languages to be able to speak with our fellow Indians.
Okay. ओके, सानू जी, आप अगर मातृभाषा में कुछ कह पाए?
हाँ जी, अवश्य अवश्य। पहली बात तो एक संक्षिप्त में जो जो बातचीत हुई उसका सार ये है कि अंग्रेजी हमारे प्रगति की भाषा नहीं है, अंग्रेजी हमारे पिछड़ेपन की भाषा है। जब तक हम अंग्रेजी से मुक्त नहीं होंगे, अंग्रेजी के भ्रम से मुक्त नहीं होंगे, मेरी पुस्तक है अंग्रेजी माध्यम का भ्रम जाल, तो जब तक भ्रम नहीं छोड़ेंगे इसका, तब तक हम पिछड़े रहेंगे। तो अंग्रेजी को हमको अपनी मातृभाषा में जब सीखेंगे तो हमारी जो प्रगति है वो बहुत तेजी से आगे बढ़ेगी।
जी बिल्कुल।
और दूसरा हमको है कि जो हमारी भाषाएं हैं, जो भारत की भाषाएं हैं, ये बहुत ही समृद्ध भाषाएं हैं और बहुत ही वैज्ञानिक भाषाएं हैं। बल्कि तेलुगु से ही याद आया, मेरी पुस्तक के फॉरवर्ड प्रोफेसर गोपीनाथ हैं जो IISc बैंगलोर में, उन्होंने लिखा है कि वो तेलुगु के छंदों में उन्होंने बर्नौली सीक्वेंस जो कंप्यूटर साइंस में यूज करते हैं उसके बारे में उनको उससे बहुत उसके मिलते जुलते थे जो तेलुगु की कविता के छंद।
इसमें सीखने, भारतीय भाषाओं में सीखने के लिए बहुत कुछ है, जैसा कि आप सब लोग कह रहे थे। समय बहुत कम बचा है, लेकिन प्रोफेसर पंडित राव, आपसे दो शब्द में जो है, ना केवल कन्नड़ा में जो कि आपकी मातृभाषा है, बल्कि पंजाबी में भी अगर आप कुछ सार बता पाए, क्योंकि पंजाबी आप पढ़ा रहे हैं वहां पर।
जी, ನನ್ನ ತಾಯಿ ಭಾಷೆ ಕನ್ನಡ. ಕನ್ನಡ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಓನ್ 8 ಜ್ಞಾನಪೀಠ ಪುರಸ್ಕಾರ. ಫೀಲಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರೌಡ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್. ಕನ್ನಡ ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ನನ್ನ ಸೌಭಾಗ್ಯ. ಕನ್ನಡವೇ ನಮ್ಮಮ್ಮ, ಕನ್ನಡಕ್ಕೆ ಕೈ ಮುಗಿಯಮ್ಮ. ಕನ್ನಡ ತಾಯಿಯಲ್ಲಿ, ಕನ್ನಡ ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತನಾಡುವ ಸೌಭಾಗ್ಯ ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಬರಲಿ. ಕನ್ನಡವೇ ಮಾತಾಡಿ, ಕನ್ನಡವೇ ತಾಯಿ, ಕನ್ನಡವೇ ನಮ್ಮ।
हाले पंजाबी भी कुछ दसो प्रोफेसर पंडित जी, पंजाबी दसो कुछ।
मैं क्या महाराज, पंजाबी भाषा होवे भावे कोई भी भाषा होवे, साडी मां बोली बोलन दे विच मान महसूस करन दी लोड़ है। पंजाबी लोकां नूं भी मैं बेनती करदा है कि कन्नड़ भाषा लई जेकर 8 ज्ञानपीठ पुरस्कार मिल सकदे है ते पंजाबी भाषा लई भी 8 ज्ञानपीठ पुरस्कार मिल सकदे हैं।
well,
that's तक सिर्फ 1.5 ज्ञानपीठ पुरस्कार ने, एक अमृता प्रीतम नूं मिलिया है, बाद विच एक प्रोफेसर गुरुदया सिंह किसी नाल शेयर कितने होया, सिर्फ 1.5।
जी बिल्कुल बिल्कुल प्रोफेसर पंडित राव, ये खूबसूरती है मातृभाषा की। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। कन्नड़ा में आपने अपनी बात रखी, पंजाबी में उसको आपने समराइज किया। सुंक्रांत साहब एज वेल एज प्रोफेसर जगदीश राव, थैंक यू सो मच। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप लोगों का। मेरी भी मातृभाषा हिंदी है, तो इस कार्यक्रम का समापन आज मैं भी हिंदी में ही करना चाहूंगा। ये मातृभाषा की बात हो रही थी, उसका महत्व किस तरह से हमारी मातृभाषा हमारी जो उन्नति है, हमारी जो प्रगति है, उसमें एक महत्वपूर्ण स्थान रखती है, महत्वपूर्ण योगदान हम उसका ले सकते हैं। और कल एक बार हम फिर हाजिर होंगे एक नए विषय के साथ। तब तक देखते रहिए संसद टेलीविजन। धन्यवाद।